What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Mobile Command Center of Speed Culture Studios. We talk a lot about automotive related things on this channel, as you might have guessed, but we do focus quite a bit on the Infiniti Q50 because the Mobile Command Center is in fact a 2015 Infiniti Q50. If you have any interest at all in this VQ37 platform, you may want to subscribe right now because I happen to have over 1,000, just kidding, over 100 seriously videos related specifically to this platform posted here on YouTube, and I have many more to come. So again, if this would be any benefit to you or you have any interest at all whatsoever in this platform, it might be helpful for you to subscribe right now and hit that little bell notification as well if you don't mind. Let's just go ahead and jump right into this topic today. Obviously, if you're watching the video, you either recently purchased a Q50 or you are currently in the market for a Q50 and shopping and comparing and contrasting, which you should be doing. Oh, right off the bat, I would say that Infiniti Nissan has really established a reputation of durability and longevity when it comes to this VQ37 platform, and there's a lot to be said about that. You will see out in the forums and in the groups all of the people with experience with this platform talk about how they were able to beat on the car over and over and over, and it just kept going, asking for more. And like I said, there's a lot to be said about that. Now, if you base your decision solely on reliability and dependability, this is probably a good platform for you, but the likelihood of that being your only concern is pretty slim. So we'll continue with this discussion. Now, one thing you might want to think about when you're shopping the Q50 is what trim level you want to go with, either sport model or premium or base model, for example. Me, personally, and some people think I'm crazy, but I looked for a base model Q50 specifically, and there's a couple of reasons. Number one is that I knew I was going to make the car look how I wanted it to look anyway, so I wasn't concerned about the 19-inch wheels. I wasn't concerned about the sport bumper. The only thing I really noticed was that the sport models were $3,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 more than the base models that I was finding, and it just didn't make sense for me to spend that additional kind of money if I knew that I could do the brake upgrade, for example, for $1,000 or $1,500. I knew that with a splitter, the base model front bumper looked pretty sweet anyway. I knew I was going to be swapping out the wheels and tires almost immediately, so the 19s of the sport model didn't really make any sense, among other things, and we'll talk about those as we continue on. But that's why I chose the base model. It may be different for you now that depreciation isn't such a big deal. If you're shopping used Q50s, they're probably going to be in the $14,000 to $15,000 range compared to the $20,000 to $25,000 range that they were at when I was looking. On top of that durability and dependability, Nissan and Infiniti did a fantastic job in styling as far as the exterior goes of these cars. The body lines are sleek and flowing. That's really sexy. The rear end is pretty aggressive, and even the base model's front end is aggressive with an added splitter. Overall, just a really nice looking car. Some people are not fans of all of the chrome trim, but that can easily be taken care of with some vinyl wrap like mine has been done here. I personally am a fan of the interior styling as well. It's nothing fancy. Some people don't like it. The one thing I will say is that it's unfortunate that not much has changed through the years, through the 16, 17, 18, 19 Q50s, but overall it's a pretty sleek look. The materials are relatively nice. It's got a clean design with some contrast with the black and the silver. The one thing I do miss from the sport model is the real leather seats with the additional bolstering. But the leatherette is okay. It's just not my preference. But overall, pretty nice look. So I just touched on briefly the real leather seats of the sport model. I do wish I had those. More than the leather is the additional bolstering, because I like to drive this car in the mountains and I do plan on getting an autocross. So having that additional security of that bolstering would be nice, but we may go aftermarket seats anyway. Another reason I chose the base model is, like I said, overall it came down to price, but I'm not a big music guy. I don't care about upgraded sound system. I never use navigation unless it's on my phone, so I don't really care. I really couldn't give a crap less about having navigation. So I wasn't too worried about that, but that might be something you would consider. Like I said earlier, the sport brake upgrade is something you can do for $1,000 or less. You can probably do it for relatively cheaply if you're real good at finding a deal. So that wasn't a concern for me either. I'm not at all interested in drive-by-wire, and I know the sport models had some suspension thing that was a little bit different than the base model, so it makes lowering the car a little more of a concern. You have to pay attention to how low you can go and things like that. And I didn't want to worry about that if I went with springs or coilovers. I just wanted to be able to swap them out with no worries. My rule of thumb is the more bells and whistles that the car has, the more potential issues there are to pop up, and the more things that you have to think about when you're making changes. And that's just something that I didn't want to think about. You might be shopping different Infiniti platforms, but you might be shopping outside of the Nissan Infiniti world as well. So let's talk a little bit about performance. These cars, the VQ 3.7, is capable of making some nice horsepower and torque numbers with some basic bolt-ons and a tune. So considering maybe $700-800 for a tune and maybe $600-800 for some additional bolt-ons, you can make the 330 to 340 horsepower range at the most, maybe 280 foot-pounds of torque. You can make 350 horsepower with some fuel changes possibly and some more in-depth bolt-ons, but you have to really start thinking about dollar to horsepower ratio. So for me, 335, 280 foot-pounds of torque is pretty nice, and it makes a fun driving car, especially when you consider the aftermarket that is available for these vehicles. You can have a nice brake upgrade, suspension upgrades are readily available, and sway bars by Stillen and Hotchkiss, for example, really make this car a nice handling vehicle. And when you pair it with 330 plus horsepower, it's pretty fun to drive on the streets and in the mountains. You might not be taking on a Corvette at a stoplight, but like I said, it's a pretty nimble, pretty fun little car to drive considering it's over 4,500 pounds. Now, aftermarket support can be oftentimes a deciding factor in going from one car to another. As I mentioned briefly, there is quite a substantial aftermarket market for this vehicle. A couple of websites like Concept Z Performance or Z1 Performance give you access to all sorts of things from engine dress-up kits to suspension, whether it's coils or springs. There's quite a range of exhaust options for you for this VQ 3.7 platform. So if you're thinking about aftermarket and what parts are available for modification purposes, this is a pretty solid platform, and I think it's just going to get better and better as this car, in terms of price range, becomes more accessible to the younger crowd, because obviously those are the people, we are the people modifying these cars, not the 60, 70, 80-year-old grandmas that are generally driving this car. Speaking of aftermarket support, there's a lot of community support around this platform as well, which is super helpful. A lot of Facebook groups and forums. Facebook groups are more popular now than forums these days, it seems like. Some groups are obviously more helpful than others. Some groups are just filled with a bunch of pricks and assholes, but that's how it goes. I'm just kidding. Everybody's pretty generally willing to help. There's some guys that get more quickly annoyed with dumb questions than others, but nonetheless, there's support out there, and that's quite valuable. And hey, guess what? There happens to be a YouTube channel dedicated to this very platform and this car specifically that has well over 100 videos ranging from how-tos and installations and product reviews and demonstrations and all sorts of videos in between. So the support, my friends, is there for you. I did mention tuning this vehicle just briefly, and there's a couple options for you, either EcuTech or UpRev. Both are very popular, but it really comes down to what your tuner is more comfortable with. For the guys that like the pops and bangs and shooting the flames, it seems like UpRev is more popular, although EcuTech, from what I hear, allows the tuner to more finely adjust the parameters of the tune to your specific setup, which is what I was interested in. I wanted to make sure the car was running perfect and was perfectly dialed in, so I went with EcuTech. Either way, it's going to cost you $500 to $1,000 to get on the dyno and have it tuned with this software. The software is the most expensive part of the package. The dyno time is maybe a couple $100 depending on where you go. But make sure you pick a master tuner like Soho Motorsports. They do a great job, and look at those flames. Unfortunately, unlike with the 3.0T, you're not going to see 100 horsepower gains with the tune on this platform. You're just not. And don't expect to cut a full second off your 0 to 60 time or anything like that, but you're going to get your car dialed in with the tune, and that's the most important part. You have to remember, these aren't necessarily 0 to 60 cars. They're not stoplight to stoplight cars. They're not maybe really even quarter mile time cars. They're meant to be kind of a luxury sport or luxury performance car. So where you're going to feel that tune is in those higher RPM ranges, the higher gears, third, fourth, and fifth gear on the highway. The car feels excellent and it sounds great. I have an entire video dedicated to this topic as well, so go ahead, like I said, and take a look at some of my older stuff. It might be interesting to you. Now, the very last positive that I will point out in this video is the exhaust. I'm a big V8 fan, and I come from that, old school muscle car world, and I still love the sound of this VQ. Like I said, there's a lot of exhaust options out there. This one happens to be a custom setup. Go ahead and check out my other exhaust videos for reference. It really does sound fantastic, and it's one of the things that sets the VQ 3.7 apart from the rest. There really aren't that many negatives when it comes to this car, but some people don't like the 7-speed automatic transmission. They say it's laggy and it's slow and blah blah blah. It's really not all that bad, and it shifts faster than any human can shift anyway. I do wish that it had a dual clutch. I wish it was a little bit quicker, a little bit snappier in terms of a performance car, but it's not that bad really, and it does seem to firm up a bit with the tune. I do wish the car had a limited slip differential. You can feel the lack of an LSD when you are pushing the car in the mountains, for example, and if you were to be racing the car on a drag strip or hitting up the autocross track, an LSD would definitely come in handy. Unfortunately, there's not much that can be done about the 7-speed automatic transmission, but Z1 Motorsports, for example, offers an LSD option, which is a nice little upgrade, but it's going to cost you about 1,500 bones. So, in summary, the 2014 and 2015 Infiniti Q50 with a 3.7 liter V6, although I would choose the 2015 over a 2014, is a pretty decent vehicle. It's beginning to reach a price point that's accessible to most folks these days. Unfortunately, you're not going to squeeze a bunch of power out of these cars, but you might be able to make 40, 50, 55 horsepower to the wheels over factory numbers, which is pretty decent still. And with solid aftermarket support in terms of parts and community support, that makes the car a pretty fun platform to own. And just like any vehicle, really, with the proper supporting modifications like a nice set of tires, sway bars, and a good suspension setup, the car feels super nimble and it's really fun to drive. Now, did Nissan and Infiniti miss the mark when it comes to some of the performance aspects of this car compared to some of the other cars in this class? Sure, but when you think about the beautiful styling of this car, the price point that's really, really accessible, to most folks these days, and the beautiful exhaust note, I think they made up for most of it. Now, when you pair that with the fact that this is an engine platform that has been tried and tested for well over a decade, and you consider the fact that it has established a reputation around durability, longevity, and reliability, there's so much value in that. Now, knock on wood, of course, but because this is a Nissan at heart, parts are readily available, which means maintaining the vehicle is relatively inexpensive as well. Again, knock on wood. Please, God, knock on wood. If you're comparing the Q50 with the 3.7 to an Audi S4 or a BMW 335i or something of that nature, sure, you're going to be able to pull a little bit more performance out of those other two platforms, but when you consider the entire package, overall styling, reputation of durability and longevity, parts availability, aftermarket support, community support, they're really very, very close. So I'm not telling you what you should or what you shouldn't purchase, but I will say for the money, considering all of these other elements, the Q50 is a solid vehicle to purchase, and I think you'll be happy with it. If you have any questions or concerns, leave them in the comment section below. I get to all of them as quickly as I possibly can. If you prefer, shoot me a message on Instagram at Speed Culture Studios. Again, I get to those as quickly as I possibly can as well. I'm happy to help in any way possible. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.